All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. My name's Court Tompkins. I'm CTO here at IP Configure. Today, we're going to talk about everything that is new in the 25.12 release of Orchid. So, 25.12 was released all the way back at the end of December. Holidays are finally over, so we finally gotten around to this webinar. So, very happy to introduce to everyone today what those great new features are in 25.12. So, 25.12 kind of continuing a theme from our recent releases. Big focus continues to be enhancing the AI capabilities in Orchid, enhancing Orchid AI. So one of the really substantive changes that we're excited about in 25.12 is we have really increased the number of AI streams that our Orchid systems can support when using a GPU. So we've done that in a number of different ways. One of the simple enhancements that we've done in 25.12 that really has a big payoff is we have implemented hardware accelerated decoding for Orchid AI. So if you're using a compatible GPU, that is an NVIDIA GPU in your Orchid recorder server, either that's a Steelfin AI server that you bought from us, or maybe it's your own server that you've got an NVIDIA GPU in. Orchid AI can now use that NVIDIA GPU for hardware accelerated decoding. So we have to decode the video before we hand it off to our Orchid AI service. Um, Before the 25.12 release, we were using the CPU to do that decoding. It tends to be pretty expensive. We can now tap the GPU for that. GPU sort of have built-in capabilities specifically for decoding video. So in 25.12, we're now able to do that. I've got some screenshots there on the right side of the screen, sort of similarly situated systems. This is a big server in our demo environment. Can't remember how many AI streams we have going on this. Yeah, it looks like just over 50. So at the top, we see the CPU load sort of before 25.12. We've sort of pegged this thing out, trying to process 50 AI streams on the server. On the bottom, you see the CPU stats for the 25.12 release, where we're using GPU accelerated decoding before we hand video off to our AI process. And yeah, what are we at? Probably 30-40% CPU load. So we really increased the number of AI streams that can be processed on an Orchid AI server with the GPU. So that is big for 25.12. Probably the biggest user-facing feature in 25.12 is we now have Orchid AI heat maps. So from the AI search panel, you can open up AI. Well, after you've opened up AI search, you can turn on a heat map and you will see a heat map for whatever object types you're interested in over a specific time range. So let me go live to our demo site here. We'll take a look at an example. So we've got this sort of hallway area here in the bottom right. I'm going to start AI search by hitting this AI button. You'll get the normal AI panel that you're used to. And in 25.12, we now have a new show heat map option that I can turn on. So before I do that, I'm going to zoom out on my timeline bar. Let's say I'm interested in a heat map from, yeah, I don't know, earlier in the month around February 10th. So I'm going to pick a range of a couple of days and I am going to turn on the heat map. You'll see a little processing symbol happening here on the top left. And within just a few seconds, I have a heat map over this selected range here. It's going from about February 7th to February 13th. I can adjust that, of course. I can zoom in and out on that, but I'm going to look at this segment of about 4 or 5 days, and I see a heat map of all of the activity that has happened on this camera. It's probably about what you would expect. We've got a lot of folks here at the water fountain. We've got some activity down this central hallway. This kind of connects two main parts of our headquarters building here in Norfolk, Virginia. And it looks like we also have a little bit of activity over here on the left. We've got a Keurig machine, so those are our coffee drinkers. Right now, we're generating this heat map off of sort of all objects that we've detected, but this is an Orchid AI feature, so I can detect specific object types. So perhaps I am just interested in persons. So now this will generate a heat map for just the people within the scene. If I want to generate a heat map just based off of motion, not based off of AI detection events, I can uncheck all of the AI detection events, and now we'll see heat map for motion. This is probably a less accurate heat map. We've got shiny reflective floors, so we're going to get shadows and lighting changes in this heat map. Might still be a good use case for doing the heat map based off of motion, but generally we expect the Orchid AI based heat map is going to be what people are interested in. If I want to save this heat map, I do, of course, have the ability to download that. So here I have a link where I can download the heat map image that I see here to share with other folks. So I'm going to clear out that heat map. Let me pick another maybe somewhat interesting use case. So yeah, let's take a look at this kitchen scene here. Again, I'm going to turn on the heat map. So this is going to be a heat map of all Orchid AI detected objects over this time region. You'll see I have a heat map here that's really dominated by activity around this central kitchen area, right? This is where folks go to, get their coffee in the morning. There's a trash can there. Maybe that's not really what I'm interested in, but this is sort of dominating the heat map. So, I can mix and match this heat map activity or this heat map capability with all of the other Orchid AI capabilities. So specifically, I can do a region search. So maybe for some reason I'm really only interested in the activity that happened here on the left side of the screen. So I can draw a box there on the left. We're going to regenerate the heat map. And now we have this heat map sort of balanced out to just show the activity within that region. And yeah, I think this heat map probably kind of makes sense too. We've got a lot of activity here on the door, people coming and leaving, and then we've got activity here around the sink and around the coffee maker. So that is the new Orchid AI heat map in 25.12. Again, it's all part of that sort of Orchid AI ecosystem, so it works with our Orchid AI events. Any camera that has AI capabilities enabled on it, you all have access to Orchid AI heat maps. All right. So, Orchid AI heat maps, very exciting. Also in 25.12, we have the ability to separate out what we're now calling the analytic streams within the Orchid recorder and the default streams or the default viewing stream. So longtime Orchid users might be familiar with the nomenclature of having a primary stream. So Orchid always has a primary stream that it's recording, and that primary stream is the stream that you see when you add a camera to the stage. It's the stream that Orchid uses for motion detection, that Orchid uses for AI processing. You can define secondary streams, right? So maybe it's a lower resolution stream that folks can use when they're viewing remotely. Maybe it's a very high resolution stream that you want for archiving, but maybe most users don't have the bandwidth to support it. But that secondary stream is sort of always something that you have to go to and view manually. You have to know it's there, and then you switch from that primary stream to one of these secondary streams. In 25.12, we've now taken that primary stream concept and kind of split it into two pieces. So instead of a primary stream, you now have an analytic stream. That's the stream that Orchid does all of its motion detection processing on. It's the stream that the Orchid AI sort of inferencing engine runs on. And then we have a second default viewing stream. And that's the stream that appears when just a regular user goes and adds a camera to the stage to view video. Now, the reason we've done that is to, again, continue to enhance the number of Orchid AI cameras that the average Steelfin NVR can support. It's useful to have that Orchid analytic stream to be a relatively lower resolution stream because Orchid AI doesn't really benefit from streams larger than about VGA resolution, just based on the nature of these sort of high performance algorithms that we're running as part of Orchid AI. Those high resolution streams are just sort of more expensive to decode, more expensive to feed through the AI engine, but they don't lead to better results. So we want to have this secondary or this separate notion of an AI stream or an analytic stream that could be low resolution, right? That's where all of the intense processing happens for Orchid AI. But then we still want folks to be able to see their full resolution, full frame rate, 4 megapixel, 1080p, whatever it is. Default stream that they see when they drag a camera to the stage. So you can see this Orchid stream configuration dialog here to the right. You'll notice that we now have a notion of mode, right? That's where I can set the analytic stream. And then we also have the ability to select the default stream that you use for viewing. So this is a very, very common case here for an Orchid setup in 25.12. I have a relatively low resolution, well, just plain old low resolution 640 by 360 stream at 15 frames a second. We've configured that as our analytic stream. That's going to allow me to get more Orchid AI streams flowing through the system. And then the high resolution stream I have set as my default view stream. So that's what an 8 megapixel stream at 15 frames a second. That's the big, beautiful image that we want folks to see on the Orchid stage when they're actually interacting with the system. But we have this lower resolution stream that we're feeding through the Orchid AI process. So we can take a look at what that looks like within the Orchid user interface itself, although we already kind of just saw it on the slide. But here I am going to go to a Orchid AI camera. Here we've got a camera in our assembly warehouse. And you'll notice that here where in this mode column, I can set an analytic stream, right? But then I can set a different stream as my default viewing stream. So in this example, we have a slightly less than VGA analytic stream and a 1080p default viewing stream. And again, this is all about sort of adding features to maximize the AI throughput of an Orchid NVR server. All right, also in 25.12, we now have this really cool concept called tag rules. If you have attended this webinar before, you've heard us talk a lot about our upcoming events, triggers, and action system. This is another building block of that. So Orchid has the ability to set tags on cameras and servers and other resources. Those tags can be used today within the user interface and through the API for, categorizing resources, finding specific cameras, finding specific servers. And with our upcoming events, triggers, and action system, those tags are going to be key to defining automations around specific types of cameras. So again, a common example might be for all of the cameras in my system that are looking at entrances or exits, if a person is detected after hours, send me an email, right? Those are the types of automations that we're building in that events, triggers, and action system, but it's all based on tags. When I said that I'm interested in cameras that are entry or exit cameras, I'm going to identify those based on tags, and it's these tag rules that we've added in this 25.12 release that allow me to do that. So yeah, we can create camera and server tags that are applied automatically based on a variety of criteria. So we've got an example here on the right, but I'm going to go straight into the demo system to take a look at a better example. So let's see. All right, so let me see. Where do I want to start? So I'm going to go up to the top here on the server's admin page within my Orchid hybrid system. I'm going to click Manage Tags. I'm interested in some of these camera tag rules. This is the new feature in 25.12. So I've got a couple of tag rules here, and these are rules that will automatically apply tags to cameras based on whatever criteria I've decided to add. So here you can see I've got some criteria that automatically add a tag called entrance to certain cameras. So I'm going to click on that. And you can see this rule applies the tag if the name contains entrance, if the name contains entry, if the name contains door. And so if any of those three are true, then the camera automatically gets this entrance tag. So for a small system like this is our demo system. There's maybe 100 cameras across 3 or 4 servers. It's probably not a big burden to go through and manually add that entrance tag to every applicable camera, but this feature is really designed around large enterprise installations, folks that have dozens, hundreds, some cases many thousands of servers. We want a system administrator to be able to go in, define a set of 4 or 5 rules like this, and automate and with relatively low effort get these automations working across all of the entrance or exit or manager's office cameras within their system, right? And again, that might be thousands of locations where it's just not feasible to go through and add those tags manually. We have this rule-based system where with just a handful of relatively simple rules, I can configure these tags to build my automations across, again, a large number of servers. And this also sort of allows me to build a system that's resilient. If I'm maybe bringing new sites and locations online, swapping out servers or upgrading them, I have these rules that are sort of persistently applied in this one place. I'm not necessarily relying on my field techs or my integrator to remember to tag cameras certain ways. I have these rules where I can define it in one place and manage a big enterprise system. So here in this example, again, we've got this rule that will add the entrance tag to any camera that has one of these words in its name. So let me go back to my servers list. I'm going to look at our headquarters server, and just to verify this is working, I'm going to find a camera maybe with the word entry in its name. And indeed, here's the main entry camera. It's got this automated entrance tag on it. The main entry doorbell has the automated entrance tag on it. However, we have a oddly named camera here that uses the word vestibule instead of entrance, and you notice it has no tag on it. So let's go back and create one of these automated camera tags that will now pull that vestibule camera in as well. So I'm going to use this entrance rule. I will edit it. And you'll notice I've got these three rules. This is sort of what they do in detail. So if the camera name contains entrance, or the camera name contains entry, or the camera name contains door, I'm going to add another condition. So if the camera name contains, let's say, vestibule. And again, I can decide whether this is sort of an and or an or, so I can come up with sort of, pretty complicated logic. I could have a rule where maybe the name contains entry or entrance, and it's a Hanwha camera. A different rule if it contains entry or entrance and it's an axis camera. I can get some really sophisticated behavior going. In this case, I just want to or all of these together. If the camera contains any one of these conditions, I want that special entrance tag applied. So I'm going to save this rule. It tells me that I have pending changes. So I'm going to hit apply. That's going to now push these rules out to all of the recording servers in my system. I can go down to this server directives tab here. That's a new part of the UI. This allows me as an administrator, really more of a troubleshooting tool to make sure that these automated rules that I've configured within my Fusion or hybrid system have gotten pushed down to all of my Orchid servers. So I updated my rules just a few seconds ago. You can see that's the most recent version is version 8. The version 8 rule set. We can see when that was updated, and I can see that all of my servers are sort of healthy. They've all accepted and applied those version 8 rules. So might be a little bit of a delay on this, but if I now go and search for that vestibule camera, indeed, you'll see there is now this automated entrance tag on it. So any new camera that somebody adds with the word vestibule in it, any new server that's added to the system that has that word vestibule in it, it gets this tag applied. And again, the idea is we can build some sophisticated automation for really big enterprise grade systems based off of this automatic tagging feature. So it's a great new capability in 2512. And again, it's one of the key building blocks and sort of key innovations in Orchid that are going to support this events, triggers, and action system that is going to be fully realized later this year in one of our 26 dot releases. All right, we also have some alerting improvements in 25.12. Relatively simple feature, but this is based from feedback on a handful of customers. So our Fusion Health Alert emails can now be configured to include the server and camera name in email subject lines. And this is really designed for users who have configured their Orchid Fusion or Orchid Hybrid health alert notifications to go directly to an email address for a trouble ticket system. So before 25.12, these email alerts always contain the same sort of generic subject. Maybe camera down for more than 10 minutes on a specific site, customer.ipconfigure.com. For folks who have big systems, they want that email subject to be just sort of something much more identifying by itself. So in 25.12, we now have a Fusion property that can be enabled that will add the Orchid recording server name as well as the camera name, if applicable, based on the type of alert, to the email subject for better integration into ticketing systems. All right, this is a small thing, but in 25.12, we've sort of improved visibility all around the app to the number of AI licenses that are available on a system, how many are available to use. By default, if you are running an Orchid Fusion system, you have one AI trial license available per recording server. You can buy an AI license, any number of AI licenses you like for your recording servers. If you are an Orchid Hybrid customer, one of our hosted customers, you do get unlimited Orchid AI licenses per server. So licensing is not something that you're going to need to worry about too much if you're on Orchid Hybrid. Just need to make sure your server's up to date to support the latest generation of Orchid AI. But if you're an Orchid Fusion user and are buying those AI licenses separately, we've now got visibility on the cameras page, on the licensing page, sort of all over the app to let you know how many AI licenses you have available. All right, this is another small thing, sort of more technically IT oriented, but a very useful feature. System administrators, support technicians, those sorts of folks can now change Orchid Recorder log levels without restarting the Orchid service. So if you have some issue or some problem that you're trying to track down with your infrastructure, or maybe even with Orchid Recorder itself, Orchid has highly configurable logs. It's got a great logging system that allows us to figure out what's going on in your infrastructure or in Orchid Recorder. But as we configure those logs, we have to restart the recording service. Orchid only takes a few seconds to restart, but while it's restarting, you're not recording video. So if we have to change those Orchid log levels to get more information out of the system, we might lose 10, 15, 30 seconds of video while the service is restarting. We really don't like that. So beginning with the 25.12 release, we now have the ability to tell Orchid to dynamically reload certain configuration settings without having to restart the service. So we can get Orchid to change what it's logging and the verbosity, the amount of detail in its logs without having to restart the entire recording service. So we have continuous recording throughout that entire period. This is a CLI-based tool currently. We'll likely have the ability to apply these settings through the web interface in a future release, but for 25.12 CLI only. All right, so we have some video export improvements as well. This is just a simple quality of life feature, but it's something that a couple of customers asked for, and it really made sense when we heard the request. So now in 25.12, when doing an offline bundle export, all cameras on the stage are currently, are now in 25.12 checked by default. Previously, they were all unchecked by default. Kind of a little silly in retrospect. If you've got 10 players on the stage, the whole point of this bulk export feature, the offline player export feature, is to make it easy to download a lot of video at once. So if I've got a lot of players on the stage, I probably want to export all of those. So that is now a default option. When I go to export using the offline bundle, every camera on the stage is going to be included in the bundle by default. We have also improved the way in which interrupted offline bundled downloads are resumable. With the initial release last year, most of the time, if your offline bundle player download was interrupted, you could resume it. We felt like that was a really important feature from the start because if you're doing one of these offline player bundles, you might have dozens of gigabytes of video that you're downloading, right? We could download multiple days of video across a large number of cameras. So these could be really large downloads. If your download fails, maybe you have a power flicker 90% of the way through, that could be a very painful thing to have to restart that download. So we supported resumption in the initial release. It wasn't 100% sort of available, 100% reliable across all use cases, but in 25.12, any interrupted download will now be resumable. So that's an important sort of gap that we plugged in 25.12. We also have some really cool behind the scenes improvements that we made in 25.12. This is in addition to that hardware accelerated video decoding that I talked about in the first slide. We now have a really, I think, slick and improved mechanism by which GPU memory can be shared between sort of the Orchid AI processes that we start up for each camera stream that we're using Orchid AI on to detect Orchid AI events. All of that means is that in 25.12, we now have a greatly increased ceiling to the number of cameras that we can support on an AI server. Again, either a SteelFin AI server or just a generic NVR, which has a GPU available. So if you've sort of intelligently configured an Orchid recording server, that is to say, you're making use of that new analytic stream feature that I talked about, where I maybe set up a VGA analytic stream. I can have a much higher resolution default viewing stream. There's no limitation there. But if I've set up those VGA analytic streams, if I have what we consider to be a mid-level GPU, an NVIDIA 5060 GPU, an Orchid Recorder NVR can support up to 150 AI streams with one of these NVIDIA GPUs. So big improvement to the amount of Orchid AI throughput that we previously had. So yeah, in 25.12, really the sky's the limit in terms of Orchid AI streams. If you've got an NVR with a GPU in it, there's no reason not to enable Orchid AI on every camera, as long as you're an Orchid hybrid customer or otherwise have the AI licenses. All right, so beginning in 25.12, we now say a very gentle goodbye to our previously embedded Orchid RTSP server. This is more of just a housekeeping notice than anything else. For the last few releases, we've had a separate standalone RTSP server that talks with the Orchid Fusion or Orchid Hybrid service. RTSP really is sort of an integration or a legacy integration point for us. You know, We use WebRTC internally for our own application. We encourage third parties to use WebRTC for pulling video out of Orchid as well. But a lot of folks still use RTSP. And in order to keep our RTSP server sort of healthy and supporting the latest standards, we found it was easier to pull it out, make it a separate process. It's distributed, it's installed automatically with Orchid Fusion and Orchid Hybrid, but it is now and has been for a few releases a completely standalone server. In 25.12, we've completely sunset the old legacy embedded RTSP server. The RTSP server was built into Fusion itself. Now, the only RTSP server we have is this external one. Again, it's been like that for a while. You just no longer have the ability to enable the legacy behavior. It's a standalone service. All right, so that is everything new in 25.12. The 26.3 release is just around the corner. It'll be here before the end of March. So all of this stuff is tentative. Not entirely sure what's going to be in 26.3. I think there's a very good chance that we're going to have the concept of a monitor user in Orchid Fusion and Orchid Hybrid. This is a feature that, again, is based off of customer feedback. A lot of different use cases for folks who would like to give certain users access to parts of Orchid Fusion and Orchid Hybrid that are currently only accessible to administrators, but they want to be able to do that in a secure way with controls and things in place. So in 25 or in 26.3, we are very likely to be able to create a new type of monitor user in Orchid Fusion or Orchid Hybrid, and this will basically be a read-only administrator. So this is somebody who can get to all of the admin settings in Orchid. They can see the server dashboard. They can see cameras, camera health. They can sort by maybe the number of cameras offline, all that kind of stuff that an administrator can do, but they can't actually change any settings. So that'll be new in 26.3. We also have a number of additional Orchid AI enhancements, really focused around improving performance, improving accuracy. That will be in 26.3. This one is a little more tentative, but we have been closely tracking sort of the evolution of the H.265 browser support landscape. So relatively recently, Google Chrome has enabled H.265 support in WebRTC for any system that offers hardware accelerated H.265 decoding. So Orchid supports H.265. You can go in and manually turn on H.265, but it's something that you have to do manually. It's not an out-of-the-box behavior. And we have it that way because generally, because of patents and browser restrictions, H.265 decoding just generally doesn't work in most browsers. It's a limitation based on patent encumbrances and other things. Seems like that landscape is changing. I think the video compression technology that we're still most excited about, obviously, is AV1. It offers better performance compared to H.265. It's got great browser support, works really well. We've supported that for the last few releases. H.264 still just continues to have better penetration in terms of camera support. So we're again evaluating sort of when we'll be able to enable H.265 by default and just have it work across most browsers. It seems like Chrome is going to allow that to happen. If not in our 26.3 release, hopefully very soon. And again, in 26.3, we continue to make improvements and iterate on this events, triggers, and action system. And later this year, in a future 26 dot something release, we will have a full end-to-end first implementation of that events, triggers, and action system. All right, so that was everything new in 25.12. Definitely appreciate everyone's time. Again, as I say at the end of every one of these trainings, we have a lot of fantastic resources out there for folks who want to learn more about Orchid, who want to try Orchid, who need help, need guidance for an Orchid system that they already have. So we have free online training available at training.ipconfigure.com. We've got online manuals. We have a fantastic support team. They're based out of our office here in Norfolk, Virginia. I can look at where they're seated here from my desk. They're available with via trouble ticket system as well as by phone. We've also got a fantastic operations team. So they tend to harass everybody who is an Orchid Hybrid customer once a quarter to try and get them on training to give you a maybe more in-depth, more tailored version of this release training that I'm giving now. So definitely look out for those emails. If you're an Orchid Hybrid customer, you'd like maybe some bespoke training for you or your IT staff or your end users, definitely feel free to reach out to us through our ticket system and we can make that bespoke training happen. So That is all I've got. That was everything new in 25.12. So everyone who's attended, thanks for your time. See y'all. Bye bye.